This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor above his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee number 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had shown up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Entering his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. He began to feel sick from the shock, and even thought he might pass out when he suddenly noticed a keypad next to the filing cabinet in the corner of his boss's office. Stanley had never seen this panel before and had no idea what combination of numbers would produce any result. In fact, only Stanley's boss knew this, since he had assigned it a secret combination that only he could possibly know. The number of his high school sweetheart's address, 2845. But of course Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. There was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? The answer, the terrible secret he would soon discover, lay buried in the depths of the underground complex he now entered. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large doors that read, Mind Control Facility. But whose mind was being controlled? What purpose could a mind control facility have down here? These questions raced in Stanley's head until the lights turned on and the panel beneath his feet began to move, at last revealing the truth of the situation. Walls full of monitors, each bearing the number of an employee in the building. Stanley's co-workers. Even his own number, 427, had a place on the wall, and the reality began to sink in. Stanley, like so many other people, reduced to images on a screen, had been under someone's control. Could this have been the only reason employee 427 was content with his boring job? That his emotions had been altered to accept it blindly? Did any of these people deserve to be commanded about like puppets? Stanley wouldn't have it. He couldn't accept it. And so when he came to the lift, he traveled up to the source of the room's power. Blackness, as the building's power and the horrible machine below came grinding to a halt. At last, it was all over. Stanley's enslavement was behind him now, merely a reminder of how precious his newfound future and his freedom were. Stanley stepped into the airlock. From now on, Stanley would be in control. Never again would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. He decides for himself now. And yet, even as the door to his liberation slowly opened, Stanley hesitated for a moment, because it occurred to him that although he would soon be a free man, there was still so much that he did not know. Where had his co-workers gone? Was there even more to this building than he had discovered? How else might he have handled the situation? What other decisions might he have made? Yet for some reason, these thoughts did not trouble him. Perhaps because no matter what he did, there would always be things that Stanley did not know. This particular path meant his salvation, his happiness, something for which knowledge could never substitute. Had this trade-off been worth it? Yes. He smiled and thought to himself, yes, it had. Stanley stepped out of the airlock. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy. He discovered the heart of the operation, the control room. From here, Stanley could see buttons labeled with emotions. Happy, sad. Levers and knobs controlled actions, walking, eating, or doing work. Every input monitored not the functions of a machine, but of a human being. It was exactly as he had feared. From this room, Stanley and all his co-workers had been under someone's control, perhaps the boss, perhaps someone higher up, yet always at the mercy of this machine. Disgusted at the vile disregard for human life, Stanley stepped back into the elevator, resolved to end the cruel operation once and for all. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. There was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? The answer, the terrible secret he would soon discover, lay buried in the depths of the underground complex he now entered. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large doors that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death. And so he entered the chamber and stepped into the machine.
Really, Stanley, I don't know where you think you're going. I don't need some big fancy death machine to kill you. I can do it right here. Watch this. All of a sudden, for no reason, Stanley died. That was supposed to... Hang on, let me try again. For absolutely no reason at all, owing itself to nothing whatsoever, Stanley up and collapsed on the floor, completely dead. Well, that's, Oh, look, I don't need to do this. In fact, I'd much rather you did it yourself. Here, come along, let me show you. Here we go, Stanley. All for you. Well, you might as well get to it. No sense just sitting around here doing nothing, is there? Ooh, that sounded painful. Well, not to worry. I'm sure being the strong young lad that you are, this shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 falls to finish you off. Look at this. I've gone about writing your suicide note. I'm making a few speculations as to your mindset right now, but I wouldn't worry too much. I'm pretty sure I've hit at least on the broad strokes. Here's a passage. I would have gone on living, but there's some birds that chirp loudly outside my window every morning, and it's becoming irritating. Does that sound like you? Be honest. Another passage. To my darling wife, whose name escapes me at the moment, tell our children that their father died in a heroic act of noble selflessness. Or, the truth. Whatever. Look, I'll be out for a minute. Just let me know when you're about to die. I want to make sure I catch it. Did you die? Oh, good. Not yet. Whew, made it. You scared me there for a minute. Look, I just want to get this over with, so here's some spikes to, speed the process along. Hopefully it gets us out of here a little faster. Kidding! We're doing this the manly way, no shortcuts. Don't you feel manly right now? I know I do. Grrr. You may wonder if I'm getting bored of this little exercise, but the fact is I have plenty of experience in watching you do menial tasks over and over and over and over. In fact, I could go all day doing this. Stanley fell to his death. Then he 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 fell to his death. The end.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, of admitting that he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, was it really worth taking that risk? All because he believed everyone had disappeared? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. Everyone I know simply vanishing out of the blue, there's almost no other explanation for it. And a nagging fear began to creep up in his mind. Questions that had been there all along. He just hadn't put his finger on them yet. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Was he just walking around in circles? Where am I, he thought. And the more he found himself unable to answer these questions, the more questions continued to arise, until he came to the issue that had been slowly boiling until he could ignore it no longer. Why is there a voice in my head, dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Suddenly, every door slammed shut. "No!" Stanley screamed. "I need to get out of here. I need to know that there's something out there. I need to know it's not just all in my head." And he screamed and clutched at his skull as the voice grew harsher and the music in the background rose higher and higher. And then, moments before collapsing to the ground, Stanley clenched his fists and screamed to anyone who might be listening, "I'm not real! I'm not real! Don't believe any of it! None of it's real!" And then everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She got dressed, went to work, clocked in, clocked out, and then she walked home. But her walk on this day was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Moments after seeing him, she would turn, run to the nearest police station, and call for an ambulance. But for just a few brief seconds, she merely stood there, unable to move. The tragedy was not the death of a single person. It was that she would never know this man's story, never hear in his own words what had happened to him, or what he believed had happened to him. For to know these things would be to exist inside the head of the man himself. So all she could do was observe from a distance and pity him. But Mariella had places to be and people to meet with, very important people, whose impressions of her would affect her career and indeed the rest of her life. She stood there for only a moment,
looking down at the body, and then she ran.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Stanley had absolutely no idea where he was going. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge on his way to the meeting room, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour, after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. Apparently, this room is so interesting you could just sit here forever. The looming thought of all your co-workers mysteriously disappearing, tucked blissfully away in the bowels of your brain. Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. Perhaps this has something to do with why everyone left. Finally, Stanley got around to heading back toward the meeting room. He took the first open door on his left and walked back in the right direction. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in... Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. You've spent so much time in this office, so much time with these buttons. Please, just put them aside for a moment. Please, let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. I'll give you 15 seconds to decide who you want to be. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, honey. Sorry to keep you waiting. Just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
I was messing with you. You don't have a wife, a big apartment. How could you? You're easily the most boring man on the planet. Who would want to commit their life to you? Have you been fooling yourself? No, please, come in. Let me show you what's really going on here. Sorry, but you're in my story now. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Stanley had absolutely no idea where he was going. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge on his way to the meet. Ah, yes. Truly a room worth it. But as intoxicating as this room was, it was time for Stanley to get back to business. He took the first... Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact... Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. You've spent so much time in this office, so much time with these buttons. Please, just put them aside for a moment. Please, let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. I'll give you 15 seconds to decide who you want to be. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. Well, really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? I really don't know where you think you're going. There's nothing over here but empty corridors. And frankly, that's perhaps even more infuriating for me. So why don't you cool down, give me a chance, and just let me tell the story I want to tell, Now listen carefully. This is important. Stanley walked through the red door. Perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door. All right, fine. Go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there. You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen. Well, don't let me stop you.
In this game,
Now listen carefully. This is important. Stanley walked through the red door. Unbelievable. Why can't... Wait. You actually did it. You went through the red door. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that. I don't really have anything planned out, but for some reason, I feel really good just the same. Wait, no, hold on, I've got an idea. Just roll with it. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Stanley had absolutely no idea where he was going. Ah, yes. Truly a room worth it. But as intoxicating as this room was, it was time for Stanley to get back to business.
No, fiddlesticks.
He took the first
What
open
now?
door on his left and walked back in the right direction.
But instead of getting back to the office, he turned again into the maintenance area, getting even further off track. So to get back, he now had to go left? No, sorry, to the right. He needed to go to the right. I think. Wait, no. Hold on. Right, left. Okay, I've got it now. Head this way. Now then, this elevator for sure would get him right back on track to where he was supposed to be in the story. Ah, no, wait, don't look at this. You're not supposed to be here yet. Get back in the elevator, Okay, well, that didn't go, Not to be alarmed, though. I'm almost completely certain that I know exactly where we're going now. Don't worry, just leave it to me. Wait, where the hell are we? Is this even the same building? Look, I'll be forward with you. I don't have the slightest clue where we are right now. I need a minute. You figure this out. Let me know when you've gotten us back to where we're supposed to be. You really don't have any idea where we are, do you? Oh, for the love of... Enough of this. I'm just gonna restart. Blah, blah, blah. Man named Stanley pushes buttons everyone is missing. Where were all of his coworkers? I don't know, maybe throwing a surprise party for him? For all his button pushing? Does that sound plausible to you? Work with me here. Look, I have no idea where this is going, so I've decided to enlist the help of the Stanley Parable adventure line. It knows where it's going, maybe. Just follow the line, Stanley. I need to chill out for a bit. Ah, so good to relax, not have to think about where the story is going, where you're going, just leave it up to the line. Although if you consider it, the nature of this building is pretty linear to begin with, and with lines being so linear, perhaps we're deceiving ourselves if we perceive this world to be anything other than a series of converging and diverging adventure lines. Could we hypothesize that it's merely our subjective perception that interprets straight lines as being anything but? That our identification with the constructed and restrictive nature of this universe causes it to appear not as its true objective nature, but as a microcosm of uninhibited free will? Whoa, this is deep. Hang on, I'm freaking myself out here a bit. Let's play some music to lighten the mood.
It's like rain.
No, don't want to deal with copyright issues. Here, how about this? Alright, now this is music. Wait, cut the music. Go back and look at that fern. Ah, now this is a fern to behold. Have you ever seen a fern like it? Such hue, such supple leaves. I think we could just sit here all day, admiring the fern. Wouldn't you? Oh, but of course, you're right. Perhaps it's best we get back to the story. Perhaps. Oh, hey, look, it's the line. Hello there. I wonder if you're going to the surprise party too. Not that it probably even exists. Stanley, here's a thought. Do you think a destination can exist without a journey? Or, perhaps, can one walk a path if it leads nowhere? Hang on, I need a minute to think. Just walk in circles for a minute. Now then, suppose that in fact no proper destination exists to conclude any series of events in this world. Can we say then that you or I exist at all? And if I in fact created this world, which I think I did, then did I conjure into being my own non-existence? Or did you? Stanley, I need you to think hard for a minute. Did you, at any time in recent history, to your recollection, construct a self-perceiving, subjectively relating identity within a finite and logically bound independent framework? Because if you did, it would really clear things up. And while we're discussing it, if self-reflexivity is inherited from a constructing identity, then, oh hey, look! It's the line again! Come on, Stanley, let's follow it! Oh, look at that! The party really did exist after all. But the line seems to have other plans. Well, I suppose we'd better follow it then. Oh, for crying... Is this that other building? Sorry, Line, but you can't be trusted anymore. Come on, Stanley, let's go look for that fern. Let's see. Stanley walked through the green door. Nothing there? Shoot. Well, try the other one then. Still nothing? I don't, Well, in that case, I'll tell you what. You win! Congratulations! You did it! I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off. So, good job! What do we do now? I don't... Stanley, where are you right now? Where am I? I'm trying to figure out, but I can't... Stanley, who am I? Can you speak to me? Please, talk. Have we done this before? Have we been in this room before? How many times have we done this? How many times have I said these exact words? Say something, anything. Help me, Stanley. I don't know who I am, what I... It doesn't... Stanley, don't...